I literally had to call my mom down to help me get a house help. The question I always asked myself was, why is it easier to buy a car online than to get someone to wash your dishes? And I think Snabbit was the answer to that question. And that was like a penny drop moment for me to say that, 40% higher per unit price is actually cheaper just because of the urgency of the use case.
You clearly chose Powai, which is fairly affluent.
Powai chose me. I was staying in Powai. I launched Snabbit out of my apartment. Had I gone anywhere else, I would have had to relocate. It would have taken me a month to do that. Full stack means that we source, screen, train, onboard and manage our experts in-house entirely. And that no part from the first to the last touch point with an expert has been outsourced. We are actually able to ensure that they earn roughly 50 to 100% more than they would offline. Raising capital is easy. Building a business, disrupting a market is difficult. We have a lot of negative reviews on Play Store. These are for customers who are pissed off that we have.
Like you have to nail the start.
का तो कल 4 कंपनी बंद हो जाएगी तो हमारा
हाँ वो बंद भी हो सकती है करेक्ट.
What should I say? Why did I leave? चलो
Done. ओवर नहीं बंद होनी है.
Done.
Welcome to Day One Podcast by Elevation, where we chronicle the journeys of founders that Elevation Capital partners with. Today with us we have Aayush, who is the founder of Snabbit. Snabbit is reimagining regular home services through its hyper-local quick services approach and is formalizing this subsegment within home services for the first time. Aayush started Snabbit somewhere mid last year after being chief of staff at Zepto, and in a short span of within a year, Snabbit has now reached very strong product market fit and is scaling rapidly across micro markets in Mumbai and Bangalore and is serving thousands of households daily. We partnered with Snabbit early this year during their Series A, and in this short span of time, we have now doubled down in their Series B and continue to partner with them in a deep manner. We believe that Snabbit will soon enough become a regular household name and a regularly used household service across India. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Manish.
Awesome. Aayush, would be very helpful for prospective founders and builders iterating in and around this space or other consumer spaces. It will actually be very helpful to double down and understand a little bit about your early journey. Back then in your operating days, you were chief of staff. Aayush, it will be helpful to understand a little bit about your early days when you started working on Snabbit. What was the problem statement?
Yeah.
What was the initial sort of inspiration? And maybe if you could walk us through your early journey, that would be super helpful.
Sure, Manish. So, being a bachelor, spending around 5 years in corporate across Bangalore and Bombay, I almost found a solution to everything else within my mobile phone. The only problem that always, that a solution to that which was not available was around house helps. So much so that sometimes I think a couple of years back I literally had to call my mom down to help me get a house help. So when I decided to start up, the idea was I was very clear that I wanted to solve a problem that enough people around me were facing, and the only problem I could think of was when it came to reliable home services. So in a world of convenience where everything's available at tap of a button, whether you want a cab, food, groceries, anything, reliable home services in any form were very difficult. So the question I always asked myself was, why is it easier to buy a car online than to get someone to wash your dishes? And I think Snabbit was the answer to that question eventually. I started Snabbit roughly 15 months back out of my apartment. It was a 1 BHK in Powai, and we obviously went through multiple iterations. One thing, as you mentioned, that for to share with founders is that nothing that you think of actually is correct in hindsight. So there were multiple hypotheses but once we launched in the month of January, we realized that there were multiple changes in the model. So we went from being a subscription player and pivoting entirely to an on-demand services model because we understood various nuances of the business, various shortcomings of the earlier model. And I think it was only when we pivoted entirely to being on demand, whether it's booking a day in advance, a few hours before, or within 10 minutes, that we actually started seeing very, very positive traction on both the consumer and the expert side.
Makes sense. Wanted to double click a bit on this shift in model that you discovered, right? So the earlier model, as you mentioned, was subscription,
Yes.
which a lot of players historically had tried, right? And this sector was somewhere where people had tried to formalize it, but everyone had struggled.
Yes.
And most of them had initially thought of building this subscription first and weren't able to build it, right? So in those early days, as you tried subscription, what were certain parameters that you looked at to realize that maybe this is not the right model to double down on? And how did that lead to the evolution of on-demand?
Yeah. So I think what we're always taught is that, listen to the customer. And I actually have a very interesting story there that, whenever you go to a customer and you say, okay, what's your problem when it comes to, say, house helps or cooks or nannies, right? The first problem that they are going to talk about is that, I can't find a reliable person. So traditionally, any founder will go and try to build an agency model where they will try to introduce you. But then you soon realize that, it's not a recurring business and that it's not viable and sustainable from a commercial point of view. So the second problem, you double click further and you will understand that customers often complain about reliability, absenteeism, quality assurance, the constant need to supervise, the constant need to replace. And then what you do is you try to take away all those problems and say, well, you need someone at 9 a.m. Let me send someone to you. And that's how we've all traditionally been taught. So there's no surprise that even we went that route and tried to follow what the customer was looking for. But one very key instance was that, we were always thinking scale. We were very clear that this is not going to work at 100 or a few thousand orders a day. And what I was looking for was a model that could actually work and operate without a lot of human intervention. When we were operating the subscription model, we actually saw ourselves on call with all our customers, trying to explain to them why a delay was happening, why a particular expert was absent on that day, or why someone had probably attrited from our platform. And that's when I realized that subscriptions don't work because you're working with a class or with a workforce which is prone to absenteeism, which is prone to high attrition. And at that point of time, the basic consumer expectation is that the same person shows up every day, which was not going to be possible at scale. So we realized that while the customers want this, we don't think that, there is a way for us to be able to sustainably provide the solution. But the more interesting part is that the same challenge that we faced with our workforce became our GDF. So we realized that the reason we could not scale subscriptions was absenteeism and attrition. And we realized that the same problems were being faced in every Indian household. And that became our wedge into this category where we said that whenever your maid's on leave, just Snabbit. And that's how the on-demand services platform was born, just by talking to consumers and understanding that at 1 million orders a day, what will work and what won't. And I think that's the lens one should apply beyond just listening to consumers, because sometimes what consumers are expecting might not be possible to deliver.
Yeah. No, that's very wonderful. And in fact, the other approach to building in consumer tech is to give a model to consumers and then see the reaction.
Yes.
Rather than only listen to their requirements and provide a model that fits into that requirement, because sometimes even what consumers might love, they wouldn't know.
Yes.
So unless it is in front of them, it is hard to visualize that this will work out.
Yes.
And this is wonderful. And in the early days, when you tried this on-demand model, how did you realize that there is consumer love? Like, what were certain metrics, evidences that you looked at to believe that this model is working?
So there was this conversation with a particular customer who, and we charged roughly around 125 rupees an hour for a subscription service, and roughly around 185 rupees an hour for an on-demand service. And this customer kept talking about how our subscription prices were slightly more expensive. And when it came to the on-demand prices, she thought it was cheap. And that was like a penny drop moment for me to say that, 40% higher per unit price is actually cheaper just because of the urgency of the use case. And that's when we started double clicking more to understand that because we were running subscription and on-demand in parallel, and we were trying to figure out what works, what doesn't. A lot of customers who came in for the on-demand model actually came in when their helps were either absent, or they didn't have one for temporarily, or they had some ad hoc use case. And when we ran the numbers, and obviously you look at retention, you look at frequency, we started seeing very, very strong signals across those metrics. When we started speaking to customers, we almost, and this was something that, I had no clue about when I started this, but we also almost realized that every society ran this concept of a badli mate, right? A badli bai, as they called it. And it was basically a very, very fragmented, unorganized, but somehow put together model for every time that their maids were absent. So they were, and I'll tell you a few interesting ways in which they did this. So there was society WhatsApp groups which were leveraged by customers to speak and find services, find helps. The other one was the society watchman who was called in the middle of the day to send someone who he intercepted while checking in or checking out of the building. And the third one was where they used these mobile applications that have all these expert listed to actually do random calls and actually find if someone was available. And we realized that in a world where everything's available at a tap of a button, a customer who probably, like, a lady who has to wake up, send her kid to school, probably step out for her own work as well, is having to go through all of this to get reliable help when she needs it. And that's how I think the on-demand model was born. A combination of metrics and deep customer insights around the pain point.
Super, super. And Ayush, if I look at your design choices in the way you've designed this service today, one clear design choice has been to build it full stack.
Yes.
So own the screening, own the training, own the fulfillment, after sales, everything end to end, versus being an aggregator where you just connect individuals, because even connecting does solve the problem. But again, building it full stack is a deeper way to build it. It's also harder to scale. So how did you still decide to build it full stack?
So I think it all depends on the kind of folks that you're basically working with, right?
Yeah.
So if you're working, say, with the creator economy, which has a lot of, or say with doctors, as in the case of Practo, you're working with a group of folks who have very high ownership around the work that they do and a high level of pedigree as well. So the higher up on the food chain that you go in terms of pedigree and ownership of work, the lower touch point model works in that sense, right? So the marketplace model will flourish. The lower you go in that respect, the deeper you have to involve, or the more touch points you need. So it was very clear that in a services business, service quality is actually number one.
Yeah.
And there is no way that you can actually build a great product or a great offering for the customers by overlooking that.
Yeah.
It was also clear that until we own the entire supply chain, we would not be able to control this.
Yeah.
And that's why we went full stack.
Yeah.
So I think the nature of service, along with the fact that true delight and true disruption happens when consistently you're able to provide quality. There was actually no other answer than owning the entire supply chain.
Makes sense. And what does full stack mean for us?
Full stack means that we source, screen, train, onboard, and manage our experts in-house entirely, and that no part from the first to the last touch point with an expert has been outsourced.
Makes sense. And can you double click a little bit into the screening and training part? Like, what all do you train the workforce on, and how does this happen on ground?
So let me actually talk about the entire supply chain, right? We source our experts ourselves, whether it's through telecalling or referral program or a group of community engagement programs that we run in low-income household areas through our own field recruiter network. Once we get these leads, they are then screened at our training center. The screening process is basically our way of filtering out the high intent and high ability candidates, because the skill level is low. So while training has a huge role to play, it's also about understanding whether these experts are in a position to do the kind of work that they're expected to, and whether they have the real intent to do the same thing as well. And that's basically how the screening process has been designed, pursuant to which we have our own training centers where we run a 3-day curriculum. And the interesting part is that one would think that a training center is mostly, like, the training curriculum is mostly designed around the chores, but surprisingly it isn't. It's more around a holistic development of these experts. So the way we think or internally model it out is that within those 3 days, it's like a boot camp where the entire experience that this expert is able to provide completely gets elevated. So we touch the technical aspects, we touch the soft skills and the behavioral aspects, we touch the technological aspects about how to use Google Maps, for example, how to use a mobile app for the first time in their life. We also talk about how should they manage their lives well, because we've understood at a very deep level that they go through multiple issues, right? Whether it's how to deal with menstruation, whether it's about how to deal with domestic abuse, right? It's the entire training curriculum has been designed more than to solve for ratings, but to empower them and to completely change or overhaul the way in which they're able to provide services when they go out and actually start servicing our customers as a Snabbit expert.
Super. And I would imagine this is the first time any of the supply partners are going through any form
Yes.
of regimented training for their skills. So it's truly wonderful that we've been able to build this grounds up and enable them in this manner. The other question that I had around our business was this counterintuitive insight of pricing our business according to time and not according to unit of work, which is what most other home services companies have done prior to us or
Yes.
today are doing. So, what was the insight there, and how did you arrive at this unique pricing model, which gives infinite freedom to our customers, but again still limits our supply partners to be unit linked to time?
I think again the answer to that is that you need to think scale, right? What works at 100 orders does not work at 1,000 orders, does not work at a million orders. So if you think about services, you will understand there are multiple the contours are very rounded, right? It's not
Right.
very sharp.
Right.
If you look at mobility, it's very clear that you want to go from point A to point B, and you want to do it as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Similarly, when you're ordering groceries or food, the delivery of food or the delivery of groceries is a very objective form of
Yeah.
service. When it comes to say dishwashing, unfortunately it isn't.
Yeah.
So we wanted to make sure that the subjective nature of services
Yeah.
is dealt with in a way that we can actually scale without having to manually again interfere with customers and experts and almost act like a mediator.
Yeah.
So we don't want to ask you on the app how many utensils to be washed.
Right. Yeah.
That's not the intention. We want to basically make it a single click platform for you to come in and basically get like 2 hours of service, and then you decide how you want to utilize that time. It basically allows us to take a subjective service and make it into an objective
Yeah.
metric that can then be scaled without a lot of interference from our side. And to be honest, this was also a pivot we made.
Yeah.
And I made this pivot on the 4th day of launching Snabbit. It's a very funny incident. We actually had this customer who was really smart. So we said that, okay, sweeping is rupees, say 100.
Yeah.
And she got the entire house swept 4 times. And we could not argue with the customer because, well, that's what we said.
Yeah.
So we understood that the customer expectations can be very different.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to objectify what is the service you are charging for.
Yeah.
And that's how this whole time-based model came about.
Very interesting. Super. Ayush, coming back to early days, again, the other big question that founders keep thinking is around which areas to start experimenting with, right?
Yes.
Which lead to more generalizable learnings and outcomes. You clearly chose Powai, which is fairly affluent.
Powai chose me.
Would love to understand that.
Yeah.
Is that the case?
So I think it's overhyped. I think I have had very simple ways when you're building for the masses.
Yeah.
You should launch in a place where it's least frictionful for you to launch. I was staying in Powai. I launched Snabbit out of my apartment. Had I gone anywhere else, I would have had to relocate. It would have taken me a month to do that, and I would have been delayed by a month. So if anyone were to listen to me, I would say that just do it in a way that's possible at the earliest. Don't try to shift cities. Don't try to shift localities. I'll give you another perspective. We launched in Bangalore, and I keep getting this question: why did you launch in Sarjapur? Well, the first major hire that we made, the guy lived in Sarjapur. So we said that, look, we don't want you to commute. You're already getting out of your notice period in your current company. So let's basically launch in your neighborhood. And the answer was exactly the same. I don't think we would have learned anything majorly different had we launched on the other side of Bangalore.
Super.
So speed of execution is more important than strategic calls when you're launching a micro market.
Got it. Super. The other, common recurring question amongst founders who are early in their journey is what problem to commit to. Because there is one side of thinking where you start from a personal pain point and commit to it. But again, you can have multiple pain points. And initially, as you said, even discovery of what's the right model for us was
Yes.
a journey which took time. In that time, many times founders start going into that same loop of whether to change the problem statement itself and should we focus on something else. So what kept you committed at that point of time to reiterate and come to this model which works versus trying something else?
This was the first idea I ever thought of, and this was the last idea I ever thought of. I think that and this was an advice given to me by, I think it's actually a funny incident. I met Nikhil. He's the CTO of Zepto. I was basically out on my way out, and he's been an ex-entrepreneur. So I asked him, I was like, what advice do you have for me? So he said that don't ever doubt your ideas. If you're going ahead with something, just believe in it until everything around you just breaks. And I think that was great advice, because once we started, and when we started, and when we started speaking to people, everyone came up with, okay, this person has done this and they failed, and so much work has happened. A large incumbent has tried and failed 3 times, and I think that that never deterred us. It almost acted as fuel to say that we know customers are having a pain point. We know no one's been able to solve it. So clearly that's the alpha we're out there to catch. Which is why we're talking about a big consumer internet disruption.
Yeah.
Had we at that point of time just decided to, I would say, believe what everyone else was saying, it would have resulted in no category creation there.
Fair enough.
So I think if you have deep conviction, which is something you should do in step one, then don't doubt until everything else around you breaks. And I think that's what kept us going.
Fair enough. No, super helpful. Coming back to Snabbit here and now, we talked a lot about how your model is full stack, how you go deeper into screening, training, and even after sales support. Help me understand a little bit about our supply side. For this supply that we are today creating, what does it mean in terms of outcomes? Yeah, how is their life before and after involvement with Snabbit?
I think it's a complete 180 in the way in which their lives operate. And the reason is that we did not try to force fit a model for the experts. We tried to understand how their lives operate, and we built the entire value proposition around it. For example, we're talking about secondary breadwinners in the family, right? We have a 100% all women cohort. These secondary breadwinners have a lot of things to take care of in their own households. So our model is designed in a way that you can actually select really short shifts, which start at 4 hours and go up to 12 hours. Similarly, we don't apply any kind of penalty when you're absent, right? These were insights that we derived when we spent a lot of time with them and understood what the practical challenges were. And that's why we now have a lot of these experts who want to join us, because even if they probably cannot show up on 6 days or 7 days of the month, they know there's no challenge over here. And the entire model has been designed around them, almost to suit their inherent limitations. And this is just one part. So obviously, one part is the flexibility that Snabbit provides. The second part is the income assurance that Snabbit provides. The third part is that they're actually going from being a subscription-based service offline to an on-demand service. And what happens typically in this movement is that the per hour rates increase, because we as a tech-enabled platform are actually able to match demand and supply in real time and command a premium for that. A significant part of that premium is shared with the expert, who is now making more money per hour worked. And because we are able to generate enough demand in hyperlocal clusters, we're actually able to utilize her better, because she is now no more concerned about how many jobs am I doing. She's committing a few hours per day, and we are responsible for actually utilizing her services. So that basically results in a utilization improvement, which is actually net came for everyone. So, and that's just the power of technology, through which we are actually able to ensure that they earn roughly 50 to 100% more than they would offline. So flexibility, assured pay, 50 to 100% higher pay. And lastly, I think it's just the social security benefits that we are beginning to provide. So our experts get personal insurance, they also get family insurance, and we are actually working on multiple other solutions for them as well. So I think it's a complete change in the way they live, in how empowered they feel, and we actually go the extra mile to make sure this happens. So whether it is about getting their bank accounts created, whether it's about getting their PAN card linked to our Aadhaar card, Snabbit provides a complete 360 solution for any billing expert who completes our training process to actually go out and earn the money that they deserve to earn.
Awesome, super. So clearly there is a lot of social impact
100%.
Created through our services. And I think for the first time, rather than being secondary breadwinners, they even have the opportunity to become primary breadwinners and drive outcomes for themselves.
100%. And the families, I think.
Correct.
If you'll hear about the number of experts who are now saving up for their children's education, you will realize that the kind of impact we're making is way beyond just providing convenience to our customers. It's actually like, playing out majorly in the kind of family development that these experts would
Makes sense.
be able to empower.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Super. Switching gears and coming to demand side, uh, how is Snabbit shaping up consumer behavior, right? So clearly consumers start experimenting with us with the deep pain point of absenteeism. But where does this go? Like what does it become? What do some of our really power customers, loved users, what do they use us for?
I think we're Uberizing services. So that's a term I really like, because we're actually making it as accessible to get help, as easy as it is to get a cab, which wasn't true. And we are seeing some very interesting and new patterns arise because of this behavior shift, right? So it's almost like, we actually speak a lot of customers, and we now see that anything which our customers find the need to outsource, can they now book Snabbit for that. So whether it's about like unpacking the suitcases, organizing their wardrobes, cutting vegetables, cleaning their washroom, or even doing their weekly laundry, any kind of task which someone wants to outsource, now they have an on-demand expert service, whatever you may call it, to find a solution to it. And I think it's magical. My thesis is that people will, number one, start living in cleaner homes, and number two, actually get more productive with their time, be it at work, be it with the family, be it for themselves, as a result of Snabbit.
Makes sense. Ayush, today, where Snabbit stands, we are very rapidly scaling across cities. There is pull coming from everywhere to
Yes.
start Snabbit, right? The other day, my mom was like, when is Snabbit starting in Pune?
You should actually go and look at our reviews. So it's like, the this was part of our deck for the Series B, where we actually said that we have a lot of negative reviews on Play Store, and these are for customers who are pissed off that we haven't launched in their neighborhood.
Yeah, yeah. No, I remember like for the last few weeks, I've been bugging you. When are you
Yes.
starting up in my society? My wife has been behind me for.
And we've done that.
But thank you for starting quickly. But coming to that point, so I think this really fast growing org where you are today seeing pull from everywhere.
Yes.
Hiring the right kind of team which can move at warp speed is critical. So as you are right now building your team out, what are things that you would look at prospective people who are looking to join and become part of Snabbit? And what does your framework of hiring look like today?
Yeah. So my first framework of hiring is to not do it quickly. And that's a mistake I made, and I've learned from it, that when you, like as you said, right, we're blitzscaling, and the most natural intent is to try and hire very quickly. So you end up over optimizing for immediate joiners. You end up over optimizing for the number of rounds you are, or the interviews you do. And I've really understood that that's not the right model. So the way in which we operate is that I have a personal framework on which we evaluate every single hire at Snabbit, and all my entire team, whether it's like an office boy, whether it's a manager level analyst or a CXO. The single model that I at least evaluate everyone on is a rigor cross depth framework. Rigor on the y-axis, depth on the x-axis. Are we finding people in the top right quadrant? Because that's where we are. So we're looking for people who are very high on rigor, strong bias for action, because we don't want to build this entire category out over 10 years. I think customers need it more than ever, as you rightly said, and it's our moral obligation to provide the service as quickly as we can to as many urban Indian households, and speed is extremely important for that. So that's one axis on which we evaluate very, very deeply. And the second one is depth, that in the process of going fast, you should not be operating at a high level. So we're typically looking for folks who can operate with rigor, but at the same time be in the trenches, be hands-on, have a lot of depth in the work that they've done in the past.
Makes sense.
And the second thing is about not hurrying the process, because that's something that never works out.
Yeah, yeah. Fair enough. And if I were to go back in time and look at your team early days when you were still figuring the model out and solving this pain point, how did that early team look like? And related to that is also a question that a lot of founders keep thinking is whether to wait and find a co-founder and start, or to go solo and just do the journey themselves, right? And clearly you've chosen the second. So what implications does it have? So a lot of ways think about it.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is not about what you choose, but what chooses you. So I was very clear that I didn't want to sit around and do a co-founder matching. I was not averse to the idea, but I didn't have a natural co-founder. And I'm sure a lot of people who want to start up don't have a co-founder. And I've met a few folks who spend a quarter, 2 quarters just trying to find the right partner. And I think that's not optimal. At least I don't want to go down that route because I was very clear that I want to start executing from day zero. So I think my last day in my previous company was on a Friday, and I had an office on a Monday, well, a single-seater desk in a co-working space. And the idea was that, why spend a quarter on just trying to find someone? If I have to find, I'll find them along the way. And it just so happened that, we ended up doing well, scaling with me as the solo founder. So I think that's the way in which I would urge people to think, or at least thought about it. Uh, I also think that it's very important that you get the right co-founder, and it's better if you don't get one than get the wrong one.
That's
Because that can open up a different list of problems that you don't want to solve for early
Yeah.
out the journey.
Yeah.
And I think the early team was a very lean team. We solved for intent at that level because uh, we did not have a lot of great talent inbound as per se. We were obviously in stealth, huddled down, nestled in Powai and building it out quietly. But the one thing that we were always looking for are people with right intent. So, for example, my founding engineer was someone who was basically I met him on a social media platform, and he took a train that very night and arrived in our office the next morning and started coding. That showed his intent, and he joined us full time 6 months later, but he built out the entire app.
Very cool.
So most of our early hires were people where we saw a very high intent, and then we gave them the route to scale and build.
What does it mean being a solo founder, right? Like at a personal level, how do you balance work and life? There are just too many things going on at all directions. So I'm sure it's a tough journey. Can you talk a little bit around?
80% is, I would say, a challenge. 20% is an advantage. The advantage is you have one less person to manage or align. So if you've taken a decision and if you have conviction, then as I said, there's lesser person in the room to align.
Yeah.
But that's like a very small part of the advantage. I think mostly it's challenging in saying that you need to take care of everything, and you can't be good at everything. So normally co-founders complement each other in skill sets. I'm not a coder, for example, so the risks of not being able to get the right tech talent were extremely high for me. Glad that we were able to figure it out. So I think the odds are obviously stacked against a solo founder, and it's definitely more challenging to take a startup that is operationally so complex off the ground. Uh, I would say that, at least in my case, it was much easier because I was able to build out an ecosystem around me. So my younger brother came in and helped me set up operations initially. My now wife doubled down as a customer support associate on weekends. So it's almost like I took help from multiple different folks very close to me. I would say a lot of people I knew in the professional ecosystem also helped us, whether it's finding our first office, whether it's with some licenses, whether it's with some legal formalities. So I think that ecosystem definitely helped. But yeah, it's super challenging.
Super. Also, Ayush, around the time when you jumped into and started building on your own, how did you decide that this is the right time to jump in? Because clearly you were in a place with stable life
Yeah.
and in a hyper growth role itself,
Yes.
right? And at that point of time, leaving all of that and starting on your own would have been tough.
Yes.
And a lot of founders keep iterating and thinking around maybe the time to start might be later, but keep delaying that decision. So
Yes.
how would you advise folks out there?
Yeah.
And what drove you personally to jump in?
I was very clear on one thing. So just for context, I was with Zepto. I was the chief of staff. Was doing fairly well, I would say, and the company was doing really well. But I have a very simple concept of when you're doing well in your corporate life, you're stable, getting a decent enough paycheck, and you want to start up. The framework that at least I used was quit first. Don't try dabbling with ideas while
Fair enough.
earning the having the privilege of getting salary on the 30th of every month. So I didn't even think of what I was going to build until I did not quit, because that's the one thing you first need to give away. And the moment you're able to get yourself to give up on that, there are going to be enough and more ideas that you're going to be able to execute on. But that's the time when you're actually ready. Until then, it's just something in your head. And my advice to anyone I also meet is that if you are really earning the big bucks and you want to start up, it starts by giving up that job and coming out of your comfort zone, and things will follow up after that.
Yeah. So Ayush, as you shifted from an operator to a founder now and running the entire business on your own, what was the biggest mindset shift?
I think the biggest mindset shift is number one. I think when you're starting up a company, you should always do it for the right reasons. And there are a few reasons that you might want to start up for, which actually will uh, result in you giving up very quickly. So it was. I think I was very clear on the kind of difference I wanted to bring about and a problem that I'd personally grappled with, and didn't find anyone solving for. So that was my motivation to build Snabbit. So number one is obviously build for the right reasons, and number two is that you basically sacrifice all your short term goals for a much larger purpose. So I still remember. I still remember actually meeting my fiance and telling her that, look, I think we're going to have a very simple marriage, and we should basically dial down on everything that we've planned for, because I'm going to start up a company and I'm going to bootstrap it, and invest all of my personal savings into it. So I think the biggest mindset shift is to sacrifice everything that you have planned for the next 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, for an outcome that you'll probably achieve over the next 10 years.
Super. And Ayush, can you talk a little bit about your journey raising capital and what advice you would have for early founders as we think about raising their first 2-3 rounds?
So we raised our seed round in the month of February. Let me take a step back. We incorporated the company in January last year. We raised our seed round in February last year from Nexus Ventures. We raised $1 million seed round. We spent a year in Powai just trying to establish PMF. Then we went out and raised our Series A with Elevation, which was in January, and then we just completed our Series B from Lightspeed, which was a $19 million round. I think the one thing that has been constant across all three rounds that we've raised is that we focus more on the quality of investor and the kind of and the way in which we think that they would be able to influence the overall outcome of business. And I would genuinely urge founders to look at that metric as well, and not just capital and valuations. For example, Nexus came in at a time when we were doing 10-15 orders and there was actually no business. I was running it out of my apartment, I still remember. And I don't think if we had gone around and if we had gone and done something different, the outcome would have still been the same. So they actually partnered with us, spent a lot of time in guiding me in the right direction. And similarly with Series A, right? I think the fact that we were able to scale multiple micro markets so quickly was because of the ecosystem that Elevation brought along. So my advice to founders would be to look at the investor very keenly, understand how deep a conviction they have on the business model, and whether they have a history of just being very, very founder first, and actually taking the right bets in the kind of category that you're building or in the space that you're building. And I think our experience in fundraising has been great. I feel extremely privileged to have one of the strongest cap tables in early stage consumer internet, with, I would say, 3 of the top 5 Indian VC funds on our cap table. And I think it's been something that's been easy. And I keep saying this, that fundraising is going to be very easy for as long as you're executing well. Raising capital is easy. Building a business, disrupting a market is difficult. So as long as you focus on the latter, the former will happen. And I think it's only when the two things are not aligning, there's something.
Fair enough.
Yeah. But I would like to also ask you a question around why Snabbit? There were obviously a lot of there have been a lot of startups in this particular category, and I would be super interested in trying to understand what really tipped the scales in our favor.
Yeah, absolutely. Ayush. So the answer to this question is two-part. One is market and the product that we build. The second is you.
Yeah.
So let me start with the first part. I think home helps as a category has been informal for the longest time. And as you rightly pointed out, it is a deeply pained segment in terms of consumer need. And there have been multiple attempts to solve for this market, and no one had come close to a solution which could actually be scalable and effectively solve this problem. And hence, when I first met you, Ayush, and you mentioned that you are building in the home health market, I thought that this is going to be a hard journey. But actually, when you iterated and came around with this on-demand model, and we were able to see evidence of deep customer love, not just in metrics but also in customer conversations, we were convinced that we have hit the gold mine. In my last 6 years investing in consumer tech, I have rarely come across businesses which have really high frequency and high retention amongst consumers. And it seemed like we were hitting both of those segments along with great unit economics in the early days. So we felt like we have come across a business which can again be a household name and solves a universal sort of need across consumers across India. So I think the biggest delight came from there. Second, obviously, was with you, right? I think the way you have gone about, been very customer first, iterated around, and come across to this model is just an example of how thoughtful and consumer first we are as a business. Also, I think the other big learning throughout this journey has been our action bias as a business. I think even in the early days, although we weren't growing micro markets, we were just iterating on our business model so frequently that it gave us comfort that we are partnering with a team and a founder who is really action focused. And in consumer markets, we have seen that it is not just the initial insight, but it is ultimately execution that differentiates companies. And the last 6 months have been a phenomenal, right? Where we started from one micro market and now scaled across multiple cities, across multiple micro markets. And the initial thesis that we had written that this is a high frequency, high retention consumer business has only proven out across micro markets now, right? So again, it's part market, part you.
Awesome.
And more you than the market.
Yeah, I think even I didn't understand how big or deep the market was, at least when we started out. And now we obviously understand, seeing even a mature micro markets grow double digit every month. How much depth actually exists.
So I remember in the early days when we were evaluating, we had met one of your power users and realized that they were actually booking through Snabbit multiple times a week. And it was not just cleaning, but it was a lot of ad hoc activities, right?
Yes.
Sometimes it was like just cleaning fans, balconies. In fact, the user even told us that he booked Snabbit to get someone to actually unpeel pomegranates.
Yes.
Which I thought was insane.
It was hilarious for all of us.
But I still remember that thought. And it just goes to say that the moment you provide a service that brings in convenience and ease into a consumer's life,
Yes.
The consumer then starts discovering more use cases for it, right? And for me, hence, Snabbit wasn't just a use case that caters to absenteeism of home health, but ultimately takes on other ad hoc activities and becomes a more integral part of your life to help you with home health whenever you need them.
No, absolutely. I think absenteeism for us was very similar to what airport services was for Uber.
Yeah.
It was just a bench to enter into a customer's home because that's when the pain point was max.
Yeah.
But after that, the customer themselves, they figure out how to use the services, and that's what we I think that's where we grow depth and frequency within like a particular house.
Fair enough. And Ayush, where do you see Snabbit in the next few years? I know 5 years is a long time. We'll probably have 8 star target for it, but like in the next year, 2 years, where do you see Snabbit?
So I think Snabbit is there are when I look at Snabbit, I think that the first milestone we obviously have is to scale our core service and our core category across all the metro cities of India and even tier 1 cities, I would say. So that's like objective number 1. That this core category is working. It's working really well, and we need to scale this. And while you speak scaling, maintain customer experience and expert experience. Objective number 2 would obviously be to create multiple other use cases which we think are very, very similar, and obviously venture into different categories where we can also provide high frequency hyperlocal services that again play on this convenience layer for customers. And I think the third one would be to obviously redefine urban convenience beyond just services. So I think that's the way I look at Snabbit. I think we are going to be very positively surprised by the outcome that Snabbit will have in the next 5 to 10 years, and that we're just getting started, and that house help as a category is just the beginning. But I'm extremely thrilled for the kind of journey we are on and the kind of team that we've built. I think that's something that I'm extremely excited about.
And Ayush, what keeps you up at night today, and what is the biggest focus area for us today as a business?
So obviously a lot of things are going well for us, and we're seeing this category heat up, generate a lot of interest, whether it's the large incumbents or whether it's new startups building out day zero teams. There's a lot of excitement in this category, which I'm personally super happy to see. The one thing that remains a core focus for us is building out the right talent, is actually building out the right team, and that's where I'm like putting in like 80% of my time. Every single hire that we make, which can eventually influence the outcome of what Snappit is going to be, is something that's very, very important to me and something we take a lot of we spend a lot of time on. So I think just getting the right folks on board, who are in it for the right reason, who want to do the best work of their lives, and really add a lot of value and impact while continuing to grow exponentially. I think finding those people is what's taking up most of my time and keeping me up at night.
Cool. Ayush, and in retrospect, if you were to start out again today, what would you tell the Ayush at day one back when you were starting, depending on whatever you've learned so far?
Be ready to accept that all your hypotheses, or at least 99% of them, are going to be proven wrong. Yet there is a big outcome that can be reached.
Fair
So I think we had a hypothesis, we had some things in mind.
Yeah.
Most of those didn't work out, and I think being able to move ahead, look beyond, and find what's actually working
Yeah.
has been the biggest learning over the last few years.
Makes
last
sense.
1 year. Yes.
Super. Thank you, Ayush, for taking out time and being part of our podcast and allowing us to be part of your wonderful journey. I think the business that we are building not only improves and gives convenience to millions of consumers in India, potentially over the next year or so, but it also massively transforms lives of our supply partners. And hence, I think we are in the business of not just convenience, but also of social change, and formalizing a sector which hasn't been touched at
Yes.
earlier, also becoming a household name.
Thank you so much, Manish. I think I'm very confident that this is the biggest disruption in consumer internet in India that's happening right now, and probably in this decade. And I think it's been great partnering with both you and Mukul at Elevation, and a lot of value's been added up over the course of a very short period, I would say. And look forward to building this with the support of Elevation Capital. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ayush.